Good evening again, and thank you for joining us on the program. I'm Tempula Shaju. Now, this week, the President Muhammadu Buhari announced the renewal of the Governor of Central Bank, Governor Godwin Emefiele's tenure for a second term of 5 years. While the decision has been channeled to the National Assembly for approval, the confirmation is expected to make Mr. Emefiele the first CBN governor to serve more than one term in office since 1999, and of course, that's under Nigeria's democracy. For quite a number of Nigerians, his reappointment is not a surprise, as his success in currency and price stability perspectives remain evident across sectors and, of course, industries. And to analyze the implications of Mr. Emefiele's reappointment for the capital market is the Registrar and Chief Executive of the Chartered Institute of Stockbrokers, Mr. Adedeji Ajadi. Thanks a great deal for joining us on the program, sir.
Thank you for having me.
So this issue is actually a burning economic matter at this point in time, because a lot of investors really want to know who are the key figures making up President Muhammadu Buhari's next cabinet. And of course, this is the very first one. For you, how do you see this, changing the paradigm for the market, especially when it comes to monetary policy decision and, of course, the expansion projects, developmental projects that the CBN is currently taking up, enough to impact on the decision-making investments of investors, basically?
Yes, I think for me this is a good one from the president, because on the back of the performance of the governor and his team at the CBN over the last 4 years to stabilize the economy, I mean, just like you said in the report, the evidence of that performance is very clear. You know the situation that Nigeria was in 2016, 2017 with FX challenges. That is now stable to a very large extent. And the performance also in other areas, development finance, financing, the Anchor Borrowers Program and other intervention programs. The impact, we started seeing those impacts in the Nigerian economy, and that is very, very positive. And so people can have a sense of what the direction of the policy will likely still continue to be, so as we ramp up further effort in those positive directions. So I think that is a very good policy decision.
But are you one of the few, or one of the Nigerians who actually saw this coming?
I expected it, honestly. I expected it because you don't want to change a winning team. You don't want to, because that is a very sensitive position, the monetary policy arm of the government, and any change at that point, can trigger, major changes in the economy, which is unpredictable. So you want some level of stability and clear policy direction for the economy, and that is what I believe the president also saw and decided to retain Mr. Emefiele.
So you are a major player in the equity market space, and of course, other sides of the market, the bonds and treasury bill side of things. I mean, you are the chief executive of Chartered Institute of Stockbrokers. But of course, yesterday when the market ended, we didn't see this news, impacting on equities.
Yes, well, some of those things take some time to filter and have effect. But I think in the long run, it will have some impact on the market. But there was some impact on some other markets, the currency market, the bond market, which indicated some positive response. Of course, we should not be surprised, because the market itself, the equity market itself, has been dull, in recent times. So you need a bigger trigger, to be able to trigger the market. Maybe perhaps that's why we have not seen the impact yet.
But do you think foreign portfolio investors are really bullish on Mr. Godwin Emefiele?
Maybe not yet. There are so many factors that they will consider. For instance, the president, how fast does he move in getting a new team, his ministers, what will be the direction in the next 4 years. They can look back at the last 4 years and they are wondering what the direction will continue to be. So I think there are a few things the federal government should do and the president should do to give people confidence about the direction of the economy. Get your team early this time around, not like the last time when it took about 6 months. Get the team early and get them running right from the beginning, and get quality people who can drive change in the economy. I think those are some of the things people are looking out for, because perception is very key.
So this is the reappointment of the CBN governor. Do you think that's the trend, the type of trend rather, that we will get to start seeing I mean, in the president's cabinet members selection?
Well, I don't believe that. I think the president should look at each person and the role they have performed in the last 4 years and decide whether, you know, they deserve to come back. I believe there will be some major changes in the cabinet. Yeah.
Okay, you seem to be very positive about this reappointment. Let's look at how it is expected, his reappointment, if eventually approved by the Senate. Yeah. How will it impact on the economic growth, you know, the whole double-digit inflation that we've been seeing at this point, and of course the fact that it has to be made a single-digit inflation rate?
Yeah, just like I said, some of the things that this CBN governor and his team have achieved, critically for me, stability is so key. I know a lot of people have been talking about growth. Growth is good and important, but growth is not even sustainable when you don't have stability. So the first leg of it is what they have done. We have a stable foreign exchange market. We have, even inflation is moderating now. It's actually coming down, showing that we are doing some right things. It is in that kind of a situation, that environment, that you can then see growth and positive growth that is sustainable. So what government should do now is to ramp up its effort towards growth a little bit more, maybe relax the monetary policy a little bit more so that we can then see growth. Because you see, the two of them are two legs. As you are trying to grow the economy, you need to continue to control inflation and foreign exchange rates at the same time. So that delicate balancing act is what government needs to get right. And so, I believe that's what we need to focus on.
And as part of the expectations, what would you be expecting from this CBN governor in the second tenure of his administration now? That's in the next 5 years. Because again, foreign portfolio investors have really been clamoring for what you call a free market as opposed to what we currently have, a fixed market regime or managed floating kind of FX as we have right now.
Well, the arguments are neither here nor there. For me, you don't want to leave your economy floating because that creates a lot of chaos. You can't even predict the direction of the market. You can't plan. So to some extent, we should have some level of management of the economy, management of foreign exchange rate. But what will I want the CBN governor to do? To continue to do those things that have created this need to reappoint him. What are those things? Keep the market stable. Keep the foreign exchange market stable, manage inflation rate, and do some things to drive growth a little bit more. We have seen some of it, but we need to ramp it up a little bit more. Intervention in the market to support farmers, to support SMEs, because a big problem now is unemployment in the country. We need to solve that problem. We need to empower more people to have finances to do business. So we need to do that a little bit more. Of course, there are constraints because we don't even, the budget that is available for that is limited. But as much as possible, if we do more of that, give people more opportunities for employment, the economy will start growing.
So that is what you refer to as development financing, which some people have actually argued that, I mean, that's the role of the fiscal authorities. Why don't you just handle the monetary policy side of things and leave these whole projects to the fiscal authorities to do?
Yeah, but what the CBN is doing is still within its ambit. It is about supporting financing. It's about financing of those sectors. So it's still within what they should do. But to agree with you, we need to do a lot more from the fiscal policy side. If we are doing as much as they are doing at the monetary policy side, at the fiscal policy side, maybe we will see a lot more positive impact on the economy.
And then talking again about the whole free floating of the FX and all of that, we have seen how the impact of the boom and bust cycles around commodities markets, you know, globally has impacted on resource-based nations like ours. But if you look at the likes of South Africa and Russia and a few other countries, they have actually free-floated their currency, as opposed to what we are doing here, where we have multiple rates, 305 naira to a dollar at the interbank market, then you have 360 to the dollar, and then you have the I and E window, which, of course, analysts globally have been saying it's time for Nigeria to come on harmonize. I mean, they're even suggesting that we should even use the I and E window, which has recorded huge success.
I think I agree with that argument. As much as possible, we should unify our rates. Let the economy decide where those funds should go, where it is needed most, the forces of demand and supply. But in terms of managing the currency itself, the foreign exchange rate itself, I think we still need to maintain the managed float in such that you will maintain it within a particular bind. If you need to support the currency, at some point you need to do that, because you don't want to throw your economy to these forces of demand and supply. It might become something different. So we need to maintain the managed float for now, but I think the market rate, we should unify our market as much as possible, not having so many multiple foreign exchange markets.
I'm just looking at the arguments of a lot of analysts like you on this particular issue. And one other analysis is that, or argument this time, will be that the CBN has been really slow to, reacting to changes from the global space as it impacts on the domestic market. In other words, some kind of devaluation is still anticipated in 2019.
Well, the truth about that one is if we need to do more for our economy to maintain a particular rate, rather than continuing to defend the Naira. And that is productivity. As the economy becomes more productive, we will have a reasonable exchange rate which is strong, which is stable. But there's a limit to which we can continue to defend the Naira. That is correct. If after a while we discover that there's too much pressure on the current rate, there may need to be some devaluation, if that is the case. But to reverse that trend overall, this economy needs to be more productive. As we produce more, I'm sure we have an exchange rate that is reasonable.
So how much of this development financing projects and, of course, initiatives are you expecting from him in the next 5 years?
I think we should do more. I think we should do a lot more. Double the amount that we have been putting there, because we need to drive growth. This economy needs to grow faster. The population is growing faster than the rate at which the economy is growing. Unemployment rate is very high. I think the focus of this government in the next 4 years should really be to drive this economy.
But is there really anything that the CBN, the monetary authorities, can do in this regard? I mean, apart from the fact that they've funded rice, they've recently started funding cotton, tomatoes. Really, when it comes to unemployment, I mean, especially in the services sector, as opposed to agriculture, where they've channeled a whole lot of energy into. Yeah,
well, they've done something, but that is not the limit of what can be done. Because even there is resource constraints, they don't have enough funds to do what they are doing. If they have more funds, they can also expand the access to more people. So as much as that can be done, it should be done. But again, like I said, the fiscal policy side needs to complement whatever the monetary policy side is doing.
How confident are you that the Senate will approve his reappointments?
I'm very, very confident. I think he's been someone who has he's been cool-headed. He's been doing his job. He doesn't have a lot of controversies and noise around him, and he's just quiet doing his job. So for me, I don't really see any major reason why someone would say he shouldn't come back.
And if that doesn't happen, what do you expect? I mean, how do you expect that to also impact the market?
That goes on. The life goes on. However, that can also create some negative effect, because again, people will start asking, is there going to be stability? Are we sure what the new policy this new president is going to bring into the market? So that might take us another 1 year to know, who this new president is, what are his philosophies, his direction, and so on and so forth. So for me, I think for stability, for growth, for the future, I think we should just maintain this conservative, policy we are having now, and retain this current governor.
But how bullish are you for the market next week, given this very reappointment of the CBN governor? You're very bullish?
Well, maybe not next week. One problem with the market is that sentiments dictate the market, especially in the short term. It just depends on the way people think. But in the long term, maybe from the third quarter, fourth quarter, overall for our market, I'm very positive. Because the fundamentals of the Nigerian economy are strong. The fundamentals of most of our companies, we saw the results, a lot of results recently, are strong. So, I mean, with those fundamentals, the trend should be positive in the relatively long term. But in the short term, so many factors, whether relevant or irrelevant, actually play out and can determine the direction of the market.
Mr. Adedeji Ajaji, thank you so much for being our guest on the program this evening. We really appreciate your thoughts right here.
Thank you.
Mr. Ajaji is actually the Registrar and Chief Executive of the Chartered Institute of Stockbrokers. But after the break, we'll find out how the two lending institutions break away from losses and dive into profitability. Stay with us. Welcome back to the program. This is Capital Markets. Wema Bank PLC broke record in its 2018 financial statement by posting a 9.5% growth in gross revenue to 71.5 billion naira. Now, of course, that other key lines were really positive with some 50% rise in profit after tax. And of course, that's the bottom line. Not resting on its oars, the proposal of a 3-kobo dividend, which is the first in the company's last 14 years, is seen as a milestone, a resolution that was approved alongside other businesses by the shareholders this week. We caught up with the Chief Executive, Mr. Demola Adebise, to chat up on what has changed with extension to the industry.
The last 14 years, well, we've not paid dividends. But in the last 10 years, a new management came on board, led by Mr. Segun Oloketui, my predecessor. One of the things we did was to put all the basic building blocks in place. And what we are seeing today is actually the fruits of all the things that have been put in place for the payment of dividends.
What were the strategies you actually employed to deliver this?
But basically what we did was we had a 3-pronged strategy. The first was when we came in 2009, we decided to stabilize the bank. Stabilizing the bank meant ensuring that we bring back liquidity into the bank, ensuring that we recover our bad loans. We also ensure that we recapitalized the bank. The second phase of it was basically to now begin to put all the basic building blocks in place around process, technology, and the people. We worked on those 3 prongs to ensure that at least we have all the basic things. And then the rebranding. We rebranded the bank. And you can see all the branches that we have, our logo and all that, basically to refresh the bank, the brand. And the acceptance is getting much better these days. And that's what we're beginning to see. The last phase of the strategy is actually to grow the bank. And that is what we're beginning to see today. And that is actually a testament to the payment of dividends that you're beginning to see. So we believe that going forward, we're putting a lot more efforts. We are embarking on a digital journey to ensure that we improve our top lines. If you've noticed on our accounts, our alternative channels, the fee income from our alternative channels has increased tremendously. And we hope that with our digital platform, our digital strategy, we'll be able to push this further up. Also, in terms of the digital journey that we're talking about, is also applying it to our processes to make us more efficient in the back office. And doing that, we believe that we'll be able to improve shareholder value going forward.
So the question will be, what does digital really contribute to banking today? I mean, in terms of returns on investment for shareholders and, of course, investors at large.
Well, it might be difficult to look at this from a quantitative perspective because we are looking at it from top of the line numbers and also reducing your costs of savings. Also, it's the way to go in terms of all the technology today is disrupting businesses. business models are being disrupted by technology, and that is basically the way to go. Even with the millennials that we have, you know, and it's tremendous in terms of the value that digital also brings into banking. And if you know, I mean, banking, we've adopted technology heavily in this part of the world. We've leapfrogged, and quite a number of things are happening. A lot of businesses, if you look at the businesses in the international markets, a lot of things are happening. Businesses are being disrupted every day. We have fintechs coming into the space. And the regulators are also waking up to that, I mean, responding very positively to that. But one key thing is the fact that cybercrime is a major issue, and we're also investing heavily in that space. Because if we are going on this journey, we need to put the right investments in cybersecurity to ensure that the fraudsters don't beat you.
And then talking about the cybersecurity, the very numbers released by NIPS a few weeks ago shows that fraud actually stood at over 2 billion naira for the year 2018, as opposed to 1.6 billion, which means this is growing. What are the yardsticks that you are leveraging to curtail the impacts of that in business?
Well, this again, as a bank, we're working on putting all the necessary structures in place, investing in the right tools to prevent intrusion, cyber crimes. We're also working as an industry, chaired by the central bank, to ensure that we put all the necessary infrastructure in place, like Security Operations Center, to ensure that all the banks are protected as much as possible. We also have strategies in place to ensure that connectivity, because you know today we're talking about an ecosystem where systems are connected, you know, partners are connected. We also ensure that the partnerships are looked at legally, ensuring that IP is also protected. You know that Nigeria has also introduced the data protection rules riding from the GDPR in the UK, and all that is being put in place basically to stem the tide of cyber crimes.
So during your years of reform, up until the period you got into profitability again, one of the things you did in 2015 was to transform from a regional bank to obtaining a national banking license. How is that going to reflect going forward now on the board structure, the structure of the board of the company?
Well, it's a gradual process. We've gone national. We've gone to key locations, again, based on business exigencies. One of the key things is on our agenda of the board is to ensure that we also reflect that national outlook. And you begin to see that as we begin to refresh our board.
Okay, so on a final note, one of the key points here was that almost all the banks at this point in time had some deductions from AMCON, actually, which impacted on the earnings of companies, you know, especially in Q1 2019. What for you was the impact in this regard? What are you doing to weather the storm going forward?
Well, one of the things that we need to do is, I mean, the AMCON levies, these are industry imposed levies, and it's as a result of the action the industry took some years back to ensure that to stem the tide of bank failures. And we all agreed. Now the fee was 0.5% of your asset base, but I think recently it's been adjusted to 0.55% now of asset base plus contingents. You know, so what we need to do basically is just to ensure that we help our game to improve on the top line so that we can cover that costs.
Well, that's it on the program for this weekend. Thanks for watching. I'm Temple Ashaju. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.